the place, burn everything we own! Have us living in a field like cattle! Hear me now! This place is cursed, damned, and yes, your master is the devil!
Hey guys, it's me, Lisa, aka Wolf and Storm, coming at you with another review for Doctor Who Flux, Series 13, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't fucking care anymore. Seriously. Episode 5, Survivors of the Flux. Yeah. So that was a thing. That happened. Yeah. You know, despite how much I despise this era, I was going into this trying to get over a cold and just having a generally shitty week. I mean, yes, it was Thanksgiving, and that was okay, but I, was suffering from a cold, so it wasn't great. And I was really hoping that having a little escapism with Doctor Who, even though this era is crap, would take me out of it for about an hour, even if it was shit. Because better shit than nothing, right? It only wound up making me feel worse. This episode was so insane. So absolutely unbelievable that I had to do something that I don't normally do when I watch episodes of anything. Really, even of episodes that I plan to review online for whatever show. Do you know what I had to do? It was so convoluted, so confusing, so generally just what the actual fuck, that I had to take notes. Actual notes just to keep up. I don't do that. I'm usually very good when it comes to keeping track of Doctor Who stuff, even during the Moffat years where towards the end it got really convoluted and just, plot holes were left just gaping, big enough to drive a truck through. I could still manage to keep up with his storylines, even though they generally didn't amount to anything at the end. With this is a new level. If y'all thought that The Time as Children was bad, universe destroying, soul crushing, if y'all thought that Halloween Apocalypse was a confusing kitchen sink mess, well, basically Survivors of the Flux just strode on in and went, "Hold my beer, bitches. I got you. I'm gonna fuck your world." And it did. I didn't think Chibnall could do worse than Timeless Child. I thought that was the epitome of the lowest of the low. And then this happened. Forgive me if I sound kind of froggy in the throat. I'm still getting over this cold. Yeah, that happened. You have to give me a minute. I'm still trying to comprehend. Before we get into it, though, I want to address one thing that I forgot to address last week in my David Tennant section. I had planned to mention, there was so much to mention last week that it totally slipped my mind. And for this, I'm sorry. Number one, a new trailer dropped for Around the World in 80 days. It's just got some more content that's really good. And if I can find the trailer on YouTube, I will definitely put it up there as a card for you guys so you can have a look. It seems like, from what I've been able to gather in the recent articles, that the UK premiere for Around the World in 80 Days on BBC One will likely be around Christmas time. So there's that. And then I think we get it about a week later. Okay, so there's that. But the bigger thing that I forgot to mention was Titan Comics has come out with a new Doctor Who comic story. It's a 3-comic series called Empire of the Wolf. And it's basically a sequel of sorts to their first 4-comic series, which brought the 13th Doctor and the 10th Doctor together alongside Rose Tyler from a completely different timeline, who had never met the Doctor before because of some situations and events that the 10th Doctor and 13th Doctor had caused to happen. They created a paradox, which included an alternate timeline for Rose, which involved the Earth getting taken over by the Sea Devils. Jackie and Pete Tyler never died, and he and Jackie were still married, but basically the Earth was overrun and enslaved by the Sea Devils. And then there was some other stuff with the 13th Doctor on her side, and those Rachnos looking like creatures from Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. But basically they all said it right, and at the end, she didn't have a place to go. Rose didn't have a place to go because she was in the TARDIS, which exists outside of space and time. Well, the paradox was set right, so her timeline virtually disappeared. Her parents were gone, and she was left alone, the sole survivor of that timeline. So he asked her if she would like to travel with him, but you could tell it was awkward because even though he's completely like head over heels in love with her, because she's Rose, she's at the same time she's not. She's a Rose that has never met him, doesn't know him, doesn't trust him, doesn't feel for him the way his Rose does. So even if she had agreed to come on board, it would have been incredibly awkward because he would have been pining for a Rose that is not her, and it just wouldn't have felt right. I was initially disappointed with the ending of the comic because it didn't go the way I wanted it to go. But when I stopped to think about it, I was kind of like, yeah, I get it, because she's not his Rose. She's a Rose, but she's not his Rose, you know? So he asked her where she wanted to go. And she said that, well, there's plenty of worlds out there that still need help. And that's all she knows. So he dropped her off someplace, I guess, and to where she could do the most good. Now, this new 3-comic book series follows on from there. I'm not going to review piece by piece because the first comic has already come out this month. Part 2 comes out next month, and then Part 3 comes out in January next year. I don't want to review it piece by piece. I want to review the story as a whole. So the whole review is going to come out in January when I've read all 3 comics. I've already read the first one because I already pre-purchased. But like I said, I'm not going to review it until I have all 3 because it's a whole story, and I don't want to do it piece by piece, leaving people hanging. What I can tell you is that it is a story having to do with the 11th Doctor and the 8th Doctor and the actual Rose Tyler, the Rose Tyler that the Doctor left behind on Bad Wolf Bay for the second time with Doctor 2.0, 10.2. From Rose's perspective, and I will give you this little tidbit because those first few pages of the comic book have already came out on Twitter like last month, so people already know about that. It gives a little bit of backstory into Rose's life thus far after she was left behind on Bad Wolf Bay, that she did indeed marry him, and they had a child, Mia, a beautiful little girl who's now a teenager. She leads a relatively happy and carefree life, and she is in love with her husband. She's happy, and everything is great for her. but she starts to have these visions or headaches of sorts, and then one day she disappears from her world. Apparently, this is something having to do with the other Rose. I'm not sure. I'm sure it will be explained in the other two comics, but all I know is something has pulled her from her parallel, or from Pete's world, into her Earth Prime. And she's going to meet up with the 8th Doctor and the 11th Doctor. Now, I have to say, my excitement for this comic is, one, having to do with I have wanted a Rose and 8th Doctor meet up for fucking ever. So having this opportunity, I was like, yes. Because you know me, I am a Rose Tyler and any Doctor person, but I always felt like the chemistry between her and Paul McGann would have been through the roof if they had ever had the chance. Billy Piper and Paul would have been great together if they'd ever had the chance to be on screen, especially as Rose and the Doctor. So even though it's just in comic form, still, this gives us an opportunity that I've been waiting for a long time. Now, just a little bit of information about 11. If anybody is wondering where 11 is in his storyline, you do get the sense of that by the end of the first comic. The TARDIS still has the coppery sort of cyberpunk look that he had when Amy and Roy were traveling with him, but Amy and Roy aren't there. So, and he's depressed. So this takes place generally right after Amy and Rory are taken by the Angels in Manhattan. He's alone again. River's not there, so it's just him. This is before, obviously, the Christmas episode with the snow, where he meets up with the Victorian Clara. But I feel like it really explains why the Doctor was in the terrible state he was in that Christmas special. Because yes, I know he was sad about losing Amy and Roy, but I always felt like there was more to it. And this gives a total added layer to that. Not only does he lose Amy and Roy, who he considered family, but in this comic, he's going to see Rose again, and this is probably going to be for the last time. I don't know what's going to come of it. I will say this much. I understand why the writers did not confront the unsaid things in the first initial comic run, because she wasn't his Rose, and it would have not made sense for him to talk about it with her, because she didn't know him and she didn't have those feelings for him, and those things he wanted to say was not for her to hear. So I do get that. It hurt a little that those things weren't said, but I get it. This instance, however, if this comic run does not end with some kind of conversation between her and 11, I'm going to scream. Because if this is the last opportunity that he gets to see her, like to her he knows, his Rose, even though she has moved on with her life and she's married and has a child, and there's no doubt that at the end of this she will likely be going back, because she's not going to leave her family. She's just not. She has a daughter. She has a husband that she loves. She's not going to leave them, and he would never take her away from them. At the end of the day, he loves her so much that he just wants her to be happy. And if that means being with her husband in that other world, that he'll make sure that, to his dying breath, that she gets there, even if it kills him, even if it breaks his heart for a third time, he will make sure she gets there, because he loves her that much. But I cannot conceive that with this final opportunity, that the writers would not give him a chance to say the things that he needs to say. Because he never did get the chance to say it. And I know there's a lot of shit that she wants to say to him, I'm sure. I mean, enough years have passed. Mia appears to be like 15, 16 years old. I'm sure she's gotten over it. But I know there's still some deep down things that she wants to say to him. Wanting answers like, why? Why couldn't you just let me make the decision? It was my life. Yeah, so if that conversation isn't had by the end of this, I'm going to be real pissed off. Because this is the only opportunity that he's likely to have. After this, it goes straight into Clara and all that other shit, so... yeah. So basically, this series centers around Rose helping the 8th and 11th Doctors deal with her other self, this alternate timeline Rose, who has become known as the Bad Wolf around the universe. And initially, she goes around to different planets and she helps them out of oppression, and she's trying to be a good person and do good things, but she's become so megalomaniacal and warmongering that she's become kind of a tyrannical queen of sorts. She's become very dark. And I can somewhat chalk that up to her not having him in her life. Because as much as she is the light in his life, he is the light in hers. And this version of her that did not ever meet him, or other than the once, yeah, they very much need each other. Very much so. If you have the opportunity, please, please, please go and check out this comic book series. It is on Comixology, the website. If you want to order it, if you want to order a digital copy, Comixology.com. I will link that website in the description. Please give them a look. It's written and inked by the same team that did the original 4 series team up between the 13th Doctor and the 10th Doctor, that I only cared about because the 10th Doctor and Rose was in it. I mean, I'm not going into it any further because I don't want to spoil it, but it's just basically the 11th Doctor, the 8th Doctor, and our Rose dealing with taking down the alternate version Rose and seeing how that goes. It seems like a really interesting story. It's gotten off to a good start so far. Basically, the first comic was mostly set up, but it seems like a very interesting story so far. I'm excited for the other 2 comics to see where they take it. I just hope it ends the way I would like it to end, because I figure if they're going that far to bring the real Rose back, why would you waste it? It might not be 10 that she's talking to, but it's still the Doctor. It's her Doctor who knows her, who loves her. That's never changed. And they deserve that closure. Seriously. They deserve that closure that he never gave her. Anyway, moving on. Review for Survivors of the Flux. I don't even know how to review this episode because it didn't even feel like an episode. It was just a bunch of things being thrown at the screen. Again, more kitchen sink storytelling to see what would stick. Okay, this is supposed to be the penultimate episode of the series, because next week's episode is the finale. He's really supposed to be tying up, or at least starting to tie up those loose ends to get all the threads together, and all he's done is created more fucking threads. Okay, so the big cliffhanger of last week's episode was the Doctor turning into Weeping Angel, being recalled by the Angels to Division. Oh my god, the Weeping Angel! But of course, you can't keep her down, right? You can't have that suspense. Nah. No. So she immediately breaks out of her stoneness, and she's surrounded by a bunch of angels who are just standing there. And then she starts talking to them, baiting them, getting angry with them, wanting to know where they're taking her, why aren't they responding? And they respond to her in her voice. Remember how in the last episode they took Jericho's voice, now they've taken hers. I still say Impossible Planet and Satan Pit did it better with the Beast. This is just sad. Because Jodie's terrible. Anyway, she wants to know why they've done what they've done, blah, 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 blah. And within a couple seconds, she finds herself on board, I think, a void ship. And she's confronted with an Ood, who puts something on her chest to stabilize her. Because she's outside of the normal universe. So she needs to be stabilized. I can safely say the insertion of the Ood in this episode was absolutely pointless. Nothing but member berries. Served no purpose. None. Actually, a lot of stuff in this episode served no purpose. While that was going on, Yaz, Dan, and Jericho turned up in Mexico in 1904. So they were stuck in 1901. If you remember last week when the episode cuts off, they're in that little town in Devon that was taken out of time, quantum displaced by the angels in 1901. The little girl, Peggy, said that the area that they were in was shrinking steadily to the point where there was going to be nothing left. You saw the border where there was land that was cut off and it was just the blackness of space. But somehow we pick up with Yaz, Dan, and Jericho on an archaeological dig in Mexico in 1904. How did they leave that little town in Devon that had been quantum displaced outside of time and space? Don't know. Apparently, the only thing I can surmise is that off screen, I guess after the angels recalled the doctor, they had no need to keep quantum displacing the town, so they just put it back. Maybe? Don't know. This episode suffered from what I would say was Chibnall's utter lack of time in fleshing details out, because his episode run kept getting clipped shorter and shorter and shorter. So he had less and less time to flesh out everything he wanted to flesh out. And this episode definitely suffered for it because there was plot holes big enough to be an alternate universe. I mean, very little of it made sense. They did not explain how that town reasserted itself. They didn't tell what happened to the little girl, Peggy. Apparently they just ditched her there. They couldn't bring her with them because they already saw the version of her grown in the Devon in 1967. So I guess they couldn't disrupt that. So they had to just find someone to take care of her and ditch her there. So they all left out. They go to Mexico, 1904. They're in an archaeological dig because they're looking for a pot that is supposed to tell them the coordinates of the end of the Earth when an invasion of Earth is supposed to happen. And supposedly those coordinates, or those time-space coordinates, are written on a special pot or something. Why the special pot is significant? How they came to be written on the pot? Who fucking knows? I'm guessing this is information that probably would have been fleshed out had Chibnall had more episodes. But just more stuff he had to cut, leaving us with stuff that made no fucking sense. I was really rooting for Dan. He was starting to grow on me. Then this happened. Well, actually, it's been a succession of things with Dan, I would say probably since episode 4. Yeah. I'm getting real fucking tired of the other characters being shat on to prop up Yaz, the wooden plank who does nothing, but is lauded as this perfect person who can do no wrong. Dan and Yaz rappel into the cave, or dig site, and Dan falls flat on his ass, well, on his face, while Yaz just glides down gracefully without any problem, because she's oh so perfect. She looks at him like, seriously, dude, you still can't figure out how to use the pulley system? Seriously? This is all Dan is good for now? The butt of the joke? Like Bradley Walsh in season 11 and 12? God damn it. He tugs on the rope, I guess, to signal Jericho to come down, but he tugs on it wrong or something, gets the signal wrong, and Jericho yanks it down, which sends Dan up and him down, of course, falling flat on his ass as well. Because, the guys can't do anything, right? Because they're guys, so they have to be idiots, while Yaz is perfect. So in the background, while they're trying to figure out the whole pulley system, Yaz is doing her worst Laura Croft or Indiana Jones impression, and she gets her hands on the pot that supposedly has the coordinates. But she can't translate it. It's in a different language. Although if the TARDIS is there, even in the area. No, it's not in 1904. It's in 1967. Shit. Yeah. Anyway. So they need to have it translated. So from there, they get on a ship to sail for Constantinople. It was called Constantinople at that time. It's now called Istanbul. Now, all the traveling that they do in this episode takes place in the span of the same year, 1904. If this was current day, I would say, yeah, sure, fine. But back then, when the only mode of transportation overseas was by ship, and it generally could take months to get from one place to the next, you have got to be fucking kidding me. They went to, let's see, 5 different places that circumnavigated the globe. All in the span of a year? Bullshit. By ship? Bullshit. Yeah, no way. That was completely unrealistic. Completely. So they get to Constantinople, and they find a woman who's supposed to translate the language on the pot for them, so that they can get the coordinates. And as they're waiting for her to do so, someone plants some sticks of dynamite outside the tent where they're at. And while Dan and Yaz are Yaz and Jericho are once again being used as butt of stupid joke, Yaz is the only one that comes on the fact that somebody's there. And she's the one that manages to get them out the tent before they all blow up. Yeah, because, Dan and Jericho are just idiots, right? Yep. Completely useless. Like they're supposed to be, because they're dudes. Thanks, Chips. Really wanted to like Dan. Really, really did. While this is going on, in 1958, you can tell this is flip-flopping back and forth at different places, different times. It's complete insanity. 1958, back in England, the serpent from episode 3 shows up. How he got there? Don't know. Why he's there? Don't know. 'Cause plot. Why does he give a shit? What's his motivation for wanting to be in charge of UNIT? Don't know. 'Cause plot says so. He is lobbying to become the head of this new organization that the United Nations is putting together called UNIT. So we get a little UNIT history, which is always fun. And he's talking to the man who is supposedly going to be put in charge of UNIT, trying, I guess, to lobby him for an in. And the guy's like, I don't know why you would care. Well, yeah, neither do we. They never make that apparent. But he offers services to him. The guy is so grateful that he's there. Why? I don't know. How do you know him? Why is he so important? Who is he to you? Why do you revere him? Like, what the fuck? It's never really said. He's just going by the name Prentice. That's it. So he becomes a valuable asset to UNIT, like on the UNIT board or something. And that lasts for about 10 years. 1968, right after the incident at that little town in Devon, UNIT commandeers the Doctor's TARDIS, the 13th Doctor's TARDIS, and has a hold of it at the UNIT facility that they built around Devon. Because you remember in the last episode, she had said that the older version of Peggy had said that after the second incident in 1967, UNIT basically took over the entire town. And they made it into a military base because of all the strange goings on. So they're there. They have the 13th Doctor's TARDIS. And Prentice, the serpent, the Grand Serpent, is discussing this with the same guy that he spoke to in 1958. They're talking about the TARDIS, how they're trying to get into it. And that they haven't been able to get into this TARDIS. They at this point should already know about the TARDIS because Lethbridge Stewart, the Brigadier, had already met the Second Doctor, I believe, or maybe was just about to meet him. I didn't watch a lot of the first and second Doctor stories. I don't know exactly when the Brigadier met the Second Doctor. I just know that when they met, he was the Second Doctor. I don't know if it was at the beginning of the Second Doctor's run or somewhere in the middle. There is a short reference to the Brigadier in this episode where they're walking down the stairs and the guy in charge tells Prentice, the Serpent, you could hear Nicholas Courtney's voice in the background shouting, as the Brigadier is wont to do. And he's like, who the hell was that? Oh, that's a new man we had brought down. He's a new corporal. Tends to be a bit shouty. I don't think that's correct. Because by the time he meets the Second Doctor, I think he's already a colonel. So I don't think that that rank is correct. Either Chibnall didn't do his research or just didn't care. And that makes me feel bad because it's kind of disrespectful to Nicholas Courtney and to Alistair. He deserved better than to have his rank fucked up because Chibnall didn't give a shit. Or maybe the writers just didn't give a shit. Or maybe they just thought, well, no one who's watching this now ever watched the old shit, so they probably won't even pick up on it. Not really. Yeah, okay. So, if this is before UNIT has had interactions with the Doctor, then I can understand why they haven't tried to get the Doctor's help to deal with this version of the TARDIS. If it's afterwards and they've already dealt with the Second Doctor, there's no explanation as to why they wouldn't call on him if they have another version of the TARDIS sitting there and they need to get into it. I mean, come on. But then again, this whole episode is nonsensical garbage. So, Prentice, the Serpent, is still trying to get... is still trying to convince this guy to let him be head of UNIT. It doesn't work. And then Prentice kills him. I don't know how. I just know that one minute he's alive, and the next he's on the floor, and there's a serpent coming out of his mouth. Some sort of serpent-looking alien thing. And then it slithers back over to the Great Serpent and dissolves into his back, like reincorporates itself into him. I don't know if it's an extension of the Great Serpent or an acolyte or what, or if Prentice's true form is serpentine. We've never been told about who or what his character is, so don't know, and I have a hard time caring. My bigger confusion is why. Why does this dude care so much about getting his hands on UNIT? Like, I don't get it. Why does he care? Flash forward 10 years later, or no, 20 years later to 1986, 87. The Serpent is dealing with another leader of UNIT, a chubby guy they're having dinner together. And he's trying to convince this guy to get him on the board, and he wants to be in charge. And this dude doesn't like him at all. He's like, over my dead body, you asshole. And he leaves out, goes to his car. And the guy in the front who's pretending to be his driver is the Serpent. And the Serpent kills him. He's like, you know what? I used to have minions who would do this kind of work for me, but, I'm kind of liking this personal touch. Why? Why does he care so much? Don't know. I don't know. Is he like killing the leaders but still unable to get the position he wants, and then he disappears for another 10 years so nobody will know that he's not aging or whatever? I don't know. I mean, there's no explanation for it. So back to the Doctor. The Doctor, she finds herself in this ship, And I do have to say, the design of the ship was really cool. At the top, there's like this lattice work of what looks like Japanese cherry blossom trees, and it's very organic looking. Some people thought it was a TARDIS console room. I doubt it, the way it was designed. But whoever came up with the concept, it was interesting. And the old woman that the doctor had a vision of a couple episodes prior appears again. And she's like, why have you brought me here? What am I doing here? What is division? Blah, 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 blah. She says, this is division. I am division. And apparently we get the download about the whole deal with division. This is like what happened between the Master and the Doctor in The Matrix during The Timeless Child, only on crack. This is like PowerPoint presentation part 2. She basically says the division was created by the Time Lords ages ago, eons ago. It was at first just a Time Lord thing. And the Doctor's like, but that goes against everything that the Time Lords ever were, every law we ever adhered to never interfere with time. Well, apparently this offshoot, rogue branch, whatever, they weren't just interfering with time. They were manipulating it to their own ends, to what they wanted to occur. They weren't doing what the Doctor wasn't even manipulating time. The Doctor was just helping people, making sure that, he was saving planets, freeing people from oppression, just generally being a hero. The division wasn't just manipulating time or trying to make sure that things happened as they were meant to happen. They were literally manipulating events to happen as they wanted them to happen, to benefit them. And it was supposed to be initially just a Time Lord thing. And then it expanded and got bigger, bigger, and bigger. And now they recruit from every race imaginable, including apparently the Weeping Angels and the Ood. If next week's episode shows that they also recruited the Daleks, I'm going to scream, because the Daleks would tell them to fuck off and die. The Daleks aren't loyal to anyone except the Daleks. So, yeah. I still don't know how they managed to recruit the Weeping Angels without getting, displaced in time themselves. That's physically impossible. If they know how the Weeping Angels work, like, how in the literal fuck? So, the Doctor is trying to get information out of her, why the division took her memories, why this woman took her memories. Come to find out, she's not just any woman, folks. Sorry, cold. She's Tecteun. Don't you recognize me, dear? I know I've regenerated quite a few times, but my eyes are still the same. How the fuck is she going to recognize you? You yourself took her memories away from her of ever knowing who you were. How is she supposed to remember you? Honestly, Chibnall. Honestly. So this is pretty much a doubling and tripling down of the Timeless Child arc. Tecteun is basically the founder of Division, and it all is wrapped around her. She offers the Doctor the opportunity to get her memories back. Because as the Doctor looks around the ship, on the shelf behind her, she keeps hearing whispers, and she doesn't know where all this is coming from. And when she turns around, she sees a fob watch. Very much like the fob watch from the Family of Blood 2-parter. Human Nature and Family Blood and Utopia. Although the fob watch in those episodes looked a lot better. This one just looked cheap. Mm-hmm. Apparently, this fob watch contains all of the Doctor's missing memories, but that's not how the fob watch works. It's supposed to contain the Time Lord's entire fucking essence when they go under the Chameleon Arch and change themselves. Now, if they had said something about the watch, that the watch can be used in different ways, that might have been believable if they'd given us more information about it. But they didn't. So, Tecteun says, you know what? I don't give a shit about your friends, but I do want you back. So I will spare you this planet that you seem to love so much. I will even spare your friends. I will even give you back your memories from this fob watch. But you need to come back to us, work with us, because this universe that the Flux is destroying, it's over. There's no hope to save it. It's dead. It's done. It's gone. Apparently, this ship that they're on exists between the void between universes. Because when she looks out the window, you can see the ship. And to one side, you see this like golden light, and the other side, there's like this silver light. And supposedly, those are universes. And then she shows her this projection map of all the different universes, and she points out the one that's about to die. And she's like, this one, the one that you love so much, that one is lost. There's nothing left of it. So we are moving. Apparently the ship is like an arc. They have taken all the things that they wanted to preserve from the universe that is dying onto the ship, and they're compressing it. That's what the Ood's doing. He's compressing it all. Somehow. Don't know. Whatever. Science jargon. And then they're going to move to the other universe and continue their work there. And they want the Doctor with them. And she's like, I can't do that, you know. I've got to save my friends. Sorry. Even though Titanium's offering her memories back, which is what she's been trying to get this is like her entire arc over the last 3 seasons. No, can't do it. Yeah, this was fucking terrible. It was the whole spiel between Titanium and the Doctor. I felt like the whole episode was meant to be just them. And everything else surrounding it, the adventures of Yaz, Dan, and Jericho, what was going on with Unit and the Serpent, it was just filler to pad the episode out, because ultimately these two plot lines don't seem to be leading to anything. If we go back to Yaz, Dan, and Jericho, they go from Mexico to Istanbul. It's in Istanbul when they realize that someone's trying to kill them. They're back on the boat again, and a servant comes in to pour them some tea and then tries to kill Jericho. They try to get information out of him. He takes some sort of poison and kills himself before he can say anything. All he says is, you can't fight the future. Why do I feel like that's stolen from something? Sounds like something stolen from the X-Files. You can't fight the future. God, can Chibnall not just come up with some shit of his own? Write an episode on his own merit? So, poor Dan has been forced to sleep on the floor because he's considered the stowaway. Now, I guess he only had enough money to buy 2 tickets, so he had to pretty much sneak on board as a stowaway. He sleeps under the bed, so no one will catch him if they come in. And he's like, why are you rolling him under the bed? That's where I sleep. And this is just becoming more and more pathetic. Like, really, really pathetic. So much they could have done with Dan. So much. And it's just all fucked. So that night they throw his body overboard and they head off to Nepal, to the Himalayas, to meet a guru who's supposed to give them some very specific information, some holy word, sentence, phrase that will help them in their journey. I guess the coordinates on the pot led them to Nepal. So they go to Nepal and they meet with the guru. And at first it seems like the guru is your standard guru. And then he launches into some weird comical shit like, were you trying to recreate Michael Myers' guru character from the movie? Because it ain't funny. That movie wasn't funny neither, but this really ain't funny. It was disarming at first because you expect him to be serious, and then hey, you got any gossip? I'm always up here by by myself, I don't hear anything. At first, it's kind of disarming because you're not expecting it. And then when it keeps going, though, it's like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. You're not funny. This is just stupid. And the only piece of information he gives them is go fetch your dog. Fetch your dog. Well, there's only one dog that's been featured in this series, and it's Carvanista. So that's the only conclusion. So from there, mind you, this is still 1904, and they've done all this in the span of a year. Plot hole. They go to China. Specifically the area surrounding the Great Wall of China. It's a big, huge expanse. It's one of the few areas on Earth that if you build something, it can be seen from space. At first, I thought they were going to, when they showed cans of white paint, I was like, oh, please don't tell me they're going to deface the Great Wall. Because, I mean, oh my God. They didn't deface the wall, but they got awful close. They defaced the area around the wall with a huge message saying, Carvanista, this is Dan, fetch your human. Apparently they were trying to send a message to the dog. They figured he would get the message in 2021. Please explain to me why people in China didn't initially notice that this was there. I mean, seriously? I know there was a lot going on in China at the time, Boxer Rebellion and all that, Opium Wars. But as time wore on, I have to imagine that a message that massive, massive enough to be seen from space, which probably likely would have taken days, weeks to fully paint, would have gone noticed at some point over time, well before 2021. Hey, you already got a fuck ton of plot holes in this episode. What's another one, right? Carvanista is still above Earth. He's overseeing all of the Lupari ships that are protecting the planet. He sees the message and he's like, oh, that's great. Now I know where you're at. But I don't have time travel, you fucktard. So that whole journey that they took was absolutely for nothing. Because even though Carvanista got the message and knows where they are, he doesn't have a TARDIS. His ship can't travel in time. So how the fuck is he supposed to find them? Yeah. So they go from there back to Liverpool. Oh, well, they're back on the ship, still trying to figure out. Because they're like, that went nowhere, now what? And while they're discussing it in their little cabin on the ship, who shows up but John Williamson, the crazy tunnel guy who's been in and out of the episodes thus far with no real explanation as to why. So this time we finally get a little bit of backstory as to what the hell he's doing there. Not very much, just a smidge. Apparently the only person who knows who he is Dan, because you remember in the first episode Dan was a kind of amateur historian of Liverpool history, and he was always volunteering his time at the museum even though he didn't work there. He knows everything there is to know about Liverpudlian history, including John Williamson, the tunnel guy. You don't know who he is? He's built a whole bunch of tunnels under Liverpool for mysterious reason, blah, blah, blah. So he tries to talk to him because he figures, one scouse to another, we can talk. Yeah, that doesn't go anywhere. So Yaz talks to him because Yaz can do anything. Dan is just useless. Even though Dan's the only one that was able to put the pieces together in the end. But no, we can't give him that because, he's a dude. You can't never make Yaz look bad. No. So Yaz says that she'll talk to him, and she tries to talk to him and looks at him like he's a freak. And yet somehow I don't know, manages to convince him by doing absolutely nothing that she understands him. And he's like, oh, finally someone who understands me. And oh, thank you so much. Even though she really didn't do anything or say anything to make him believe that. But hey, it's Yaz. Yaz gotta be perfect, right? So he explains to them that the tunnels that he dug, why he dug them, what motivated him to do so, don't know. Again, because plot says so. The tunnels apparently lead to different points in time and different points in space. Because of what's happening with the flux, time has gone all fucko, and it's basically the tunnels have turned into time tunnels of sorts, and that explains how he got to Atropos in the second episode, why he just appeared there out of nowhere and then disappeared, and why he keeps popping up, why he appeared in the Crimea and whatever. Because these different doors all lead to different times and spaces. One of the doors, he points to door number 9, is a door of death. You don't want to go in there, you're just going to die. So, I'm assuming that one of these doors is going to lead back to 2021, or wherever the Doctor is, possibly. But I guess it's a Deus Ex Machina to get them out of wherever they're stuck in. I suppose we'll see. While all this is occurring, we get a quick scene with Vinder. Before this starts, though, Carvanista is checking to make sure all the ships are together. But one of the ships is not responding the way that it's supposed to, and it dips out and leaves. And he tries to call to it to get to come back. It doesn't listen, so he goes after it. And he sets up some, I guess the ship has some remote thing where if he can exert manual control over the ship and force it back. So as she's over some sort of half planet type thing, and she's about to land on it, but he grabs her and asserts control of her ship before she can. And at that exact same moment, you can literally hear it from the sky. You can hear her ship being shooed back. Vinder transports down onto the surface. What is he using? Vortex manipulator? Don't know. Anyway, he lands down there on the surface. And he pulls his gun out and he's looking around, and you see a bunch of humans in groups surrounding these pillars of blue light. These machine-looking things giving off a blue glow. You don't know what the hell's going on at first. And then off in the distance, you see Swarm and Azure and Passenger standing there. And Swarm giving this blah, blah, blah. You are space, we are time. Villainy laugh. And he absorbs them all. Or he kills them all, and they're absorbed into the pillars. Or I think they are. What is the point of all this? No fucking clue. Or at least we won't know until the end of the episode. So he's like, holy shit, what the fuck? And he's got his gun around. And he turns around, and there's Swarm and Azure and Passenger standing right there. And before he can even say 2 words, they grab him out of space and time and put him into the Passenger, where he meets up with Dan's wannabe girlfriend, Diane, who's still stuck in there. And she's like, I remember you. Great, let's team up, because I've got some vengeance. I want to lay the smack down on these guys, and I'm glad you got a gun. Yeah, like, that's really going to help. Yeah, okay. So, Vinder is now stuck in a Passenger. For whatever purpose Vinder was supposed to serve, I don't know. Belle is put back. The ship that Belle's on is put back in the hole that she left. And Carvanista transports himself down onto that ship to confront whoever supposedly stole the ship. And they meet, and that action sequence between them was actually not too bad, but it was very quick. And as they're talking, they start hearing rumblings outside the ship. And as this is going on, there's rumblings going on in the tunnels. This is basically resonating throughout time and space, kind of like how the Centaurans did it before in episode 2. After they talk to Williamson on the ship, and Williamson leaves or disappears back in another door, they go back to Liverpool to investigate the actual physical tunnels, and that's where they find him again, and that's where he explains about all the doors. And while they're in there, the tunnels start to rumble and shake and then they explode open, and a bunch of Centaurans come walking through. At the same time, the Centauran ships appear above the Earth, where the Lupari are protecting it and start invading all of the ships and taking out the Lupari so they can get to the planet. How has this managed to happen? Well, do you remember when we last left the Serpent back in the 80s? Well, now it's 2017. And this kind of, I think, is Chibnall's throwaway explanation as to what happened to UNIT. Because if you remember, at the beginning of Series 11, we find out that UNIT was disbanded for lack of funding. And everybody was like, what the fuck? Well, 2017, which is right about the time where this would have happened, Kate Stewart, who appears... Yeah, Kate Stewart. She's in charge of UNIT, and she has been investigating the Serpent herself. She does not trust him. She doesn't even believe he's human. And she basically threatens him and says, if you don't back the fuck off, I know what you've done. I know that you've done some psychic mumbo jumbo. I've got stuff on me that will prevent you from killing me directly like you've been doing to all these other people. I know that you're a liar. I know that there have been people around you who've died, circumstances unknown, that you've been around for far too long to make any sense. And if you don't stop, I'm going to take you the fuck down, because this place is my legacy. My family has been here for far too long, and this place is far too important to me for you to take it apart, so you better stand the fuck down. And he's just like, whatever she has on her to protect her muskrat, because he doesn't even attempt to do the serpent thing on her. He lets her go, but then he makes a phone call to the facility that's in charge of nuclear armaments around the planet, I guess, the United Nations armaments. And the woman he's talking to is an ally. She's got the same tattoo that the serpent has. She has it on her wrist. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, that's the John Pertwee's tattoo from when he was the Third Doctor. No. I've actually seen the pictures of John Pertwee's tattoo, and I've seen the pictures of the tattoo that the woman had and the one that's on the serpent's wrist, and they're not at all alike. They're similar, but they're not alike. The only reason that was even a thing with Pertwee's doctor is because that was Pertwee's tattoo. It was his real life tattoo. He got it when he was in the Navy, and it wasn't, I mean, yes, they could have covered it up with makeup, but I don't think they wanted to bother with it. So they just wrote a quick in-universe explanation for why he had it, and it was simple. It was a mark of him being an exile, because he was exiled by the Time Lords for his entire third life on planet Earth, and that was the mark that the Time Lords gave to him. When he regenerated into the Fourth Doctor and he was no longer exiled, the mark was gone and has not returned since. It's not that complicated. It doesn't have anything to do with the serpent. Chibnall's not that clever. And honestly, that little tiny piece of Doctor Who lore, I don't see how that would be worth making into a thing. Literally, the only reason it was even made a thing was because Pertwee had a tattoo and they had to explain it, because the other doctors never had tats. And Pertwee wasn't going to get rid of it. So, anyway, so he tells her to arm the nuclear armaments around the planet, take down the shielding, and this basically allows the Centaurans. And then he's in a phone call somehow with the Centaurans, the leader of Centaur. He's made a deal with them to allow them to take the planet. Why? Don't know. Was that why he was trying to get in charge of UNIT to make it easier for the Centaurans to take over? Don't know. Don't know. I don't even care at this point. Because none of it makes sense. None of it. So, the Centaurans are doing what they did before, a temporal takeover in multiple points in time. And they're in 1904, so Yaz and Dan and Jericho are dealing with them in the tunnels. They're in current time, 2017. They're on a Lupari ship in 2021, where Bell and Carvanista have to deal with them. And I think they might even be invading the Void ship where, well, we didn't see them invading the Void ship, but I wouldn't put it past them, although how they would get through the Void, I don't know. Because the fact that that division even had the ability to do so is like beyond the beyond. The Doctors in better seasons, the 10th Doctor more specifically, made it a point, a very big point, that when the Time Lords died, that any ability to travel between universes was lost completely and totally. Before then, you could just, pop over to the next universe, pop back in time for tea. No big deal, because the Time Lords had control over that travel. And then once after the war happened and the Time Lords died, even later on, after Time of the Doctor, or after the Day of the Doctor, when we find out that they didn't actually die, that he just put them in a pocket verse, still, there was no way that travel between universes could be possible. So how they have the ability, division, how they have the ability to exist in the Void and then travel between universes like that, yeah, that's a plot hole. That is a big plot hole. The worst plot hole is the fact that she's saying that the universe is dying. That means Earth itself, with all the Doctor's previous companions that are still alive, UNIT, all of his friends, their families, I mean, all of the races he's helped, all those different planets, everything will cease to exist. Even past Doctors who are still bippity-boppiting and floating around in that universe will cease to exist. His past selves will cease to fucking exist. Only this future version of her, this present version of her, 13, will exist. Because that there are past versions of her that exist at the same time as herself. And that's why we have those multi-Doctor episodes, because sometimes they cross paths. But if the universe dies, where they're bippity-bopping around, then those past versions of her won't exist anymore. Is that what Chibnall's going for? Trying to get rid of all the guys, all the past male incarnations of the Doctor for good, so they will no longer exist, and then shuffle her off into another universe so she can exist on her own, nifty, neato, perfect? It's not just the first female Doctor, but now the only Doctor? Oh, fuck right the fuck off, Chibnall. Fuck right the fuck off. And get the fuck out. Like, seriously. Get the fuck out. So, yeah. At the very end of the episode, the Centaurans are invading, and apparently Swarm and Azure, they were using all the humans in this machinery to build some sort of bridge to connect themselves to the Doctor. To, I guess, allow them to travel across the Void. And to Division's HQ. And that's how they get there, when they did whatever they did that Vinder saw killing all those people. They get to Division HQ, and Technique was like, "What are you doing here?" Now, I thought that Storm and Azure were supposed to be the big bad, but it just seems like they're just random baddos who were imprisoned by Division, got real pissed off because they were in prison for so long and now want revenge. I can't tell who the big bad is supposed to be. Storm and Azure? The Great Serpent? Who the fuck knows anymore? There are so many threads going on in this series that nothing makes any sort of sense. There's no specific bad guy, just a bunch of different people, and he keeps adding more with no context, no backstory, and no sense. So she's blah blah blahing tech what are you doing here? Blah, 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 blah. And Swarm's just like, bitch, shut up. And he kills her. And that's the end of Tectoon 1 done. So we're left at the end of the episode with the Centaurans invading from all temporal points, and Storm and Azure about to take the Doctor out for good because he's about to touch her face, which means he could do to her what he did to Tectoon. Yeah. So I'm assuming next week is supposed to tie up all these threads. Maybe not necessarily the Doctor's backstory. Well, I know that the fob watch is supposed to play a big role. And based on the next time trailer, it's going to be opened. So she will likely get her memories back, everything that they took from her. See, any chance that they could have shuffled this bullshit era off into another universe is quickly fading. And the whole rumor about Bell and Vinder being the Doctor's true parents, I thought that was such a load of shit. Like, there's just no way. There's just no way. I thought it was so far removed from the possibility of reality. But after this episode, I was like, oh God. He might really be doing this. By the end of the episode, like, seriously, we might really find out that Belle and Vinder are her actual parents. Oh, God. We might find out what her name is, where she's from, all of this shit when she gets her memories back. Oh, God. Why, Chibnall? Why? Just why? What the fuck, man? Like, what the actual fuck? At this point, there won't be no mystery left. Look, I don't know what Russell's planning to do when he comes in for the 60th or the new season after that. And I know he said he was going to respect whatever Chibnall ends up with. But this is too much. I mean, this is just... Oh, I also forgot to mention what happens to Kate. Just before the Centaurans invade, Kate, after her conversation with the serpent, she goes home. And before she gets into her house, she sees her little front doorbell security system goes off. And she realizes that it's not safe for her to go inside. And she just manages to get enough distance between her and the house where the house blows up. Obviously, this was the serpent trying to kill her. That didn't work. She places a call to Osgood and tells Osgood that she's going dark before she tears apart her phone and crushes her phone so that she can't be found. Now, I know Kate Stewart is going to appear in next week's episode. She's apparently the leader of the human resistance against the Centaurans. At least we got something. But at this point, doesn't matter. This is just... God, I thought Timeless Children was a dumpster fire. And then Survivors of Flux just walked in and said, hold my beer, y'all. I'm gonna fuck up your world. Yeah, that happened. I don't know where to go from here. I just don't. To say nothing of the disrespect to Unit and to Kate, to Alistair. of the plot contrivances that make no sense, that are big enough to drive a TARDIS through, of the kitchen sink storytelling. And guess what, Chibnall? Whatever you're throwing isn't sticking anymore. Not that it ever really did. Because none of it makes sense. Absolutely none of it. Characters put in there for no purpose whatsoever. Storylines started with no end. Like the whole adventure with Yaz, Dan, and Jericho went absolutely nowhere. Nothing. To no end. Other than to get them to the tunnels. And then the PowerPoint data dump, part 2, between Tecteun and the doctor about her origins. And yeah, she basically says straight up, the master did not lie to you. It was all true. Oh, fuck right off. Chibnall. Fuck right off. Mandeep, again, is Yaz, the wooden plank. I feel sorry for Dan. I feel sorry for the actor who plays Dan, because I feel like this guy is talented and could have been utilized a lot better. And has pretty much become the butt of the joke. I feel sorry for the actor who plays Jericho. I know he is quite a famous actor in the UK, a very talented guy. Deserves better than this crap. He did well. He was probably the only decent part of the episode. Everything else around it was just garbage. Complete, utter trash fire garbage. And Jodie, what can I say about Jodie? I mean, that's beating a dead horse. She's terrible. Just utterly terrible. She's trying to go for darkness and gravitas and oncoming storm, and she just fails miserably. Just miserably. She comes off more annoying and irritating than anything else. I mean, think of that scene between her and Tecteun and put Tennant in that. Capaldi. Even Smith. And even though the writing is shit, and this whole story is shit, because they are good actors, they could have held it up. They could have made it better. But Jodie. Yeah, no. Just no. This whole era. No. I don't have to tell you that the response to this episode on Twitter has been generally extremely negative. At least from the broader fan base. I know there is still that vocal minority out there who I guess is impressed by anything. But those of us that care about the show, that love this show, that have invested themselves into this show and this character and these actors and everybody involved, it's just heartbreaking, soul crushing. It hurts. It just really hurts. I didn't think anything could hurt me more than the time I was a child, and then this happened. God only knows what's going to happen next week. I didn't think Chibnall could reach a new low, but apparently there is no basement for him. The only thing that gives me any sort of hope whatsoever is that there's one more episode left, 3 specials, and then she's done. They're done, and this era can be over. And we can welcome Russell with open arms and hope to God he can find some way to fix this mess. Don't know how, but I have to have faith because it's Russell. He's never steered us wrong before. He gave the show back to us after 16 years off the air, rescued it from nothing, turned it into the biggest success the UK had ever seen. Turned it into an institution. If anybody can strike gold twice, it's him. He has to. He has no idea what's riding on this. If this isn't fixed, there's no going back. There's not much more this show can take. It's already on its last legs as it is. Well, anyway, that's the review. I know I was a bit ranty, but I felt like I had to be for this. Anyway, okay, guys, I haven't yet listened to the new set of Doctor Who Adventures with the Ninth Doctor. Like I said, this week has been rough, between Thanksgiving, busyness at work, being sick. Just wasn't in the frame of mind. So this coming week, hopefully things will slow down and have a little time to sit back and listen to the audio. And I will give you guys my review for that when I have the chance. I want to do that before all the Christmas shenanigans, because then I'm going to be busy again at work. So I will do my best to get that review in before. And again, don't forget the Empire of the Wolf comic book review. That's not happening until January, when I have all 3 comics together as one, and I can review it all at once. So yeah, I will see you guys next week for the series finale, episode 6, The Ravagers. I don't even have a bar for this episode. I just want it to be over. I just want it to be over. Really. Anyway, love you all. Talk to you guys soon. Peace out.
Good night.